Are you for it? Or are you against it?
Alright, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, I'm Oliver Bloom. I'll be representing those in favor of the death penalty. And I'll introduce why it should be abolished in our society and why it's beneficial.
Hi, I'm John Kinitra. I'm representing those against the death penalty. I'll explain the problems with the current system and why the death penalty should be abolished because of them. To start, I'm going to talk about the most commonly used method of execution today in the United States.
The last recorded case of hanging in the United States was on May 27, 1997. The more common and current method of executions is a lethal injection, which consists of a 3-cocktail drug. Researchers concluded that pancuronium was the only reliable fatal part of the cocktail, meaning the executed may actually have died of suffocation as it paralyzed their lungs. In cases where the injection was botched and the drugs were delivered into the muscle or under the skin rather than into the veins, prisoners would be fully aware as the paralysis took hold and the potassium chloride was administered.
Stars that shine are slowly fading. These darkest nights are mine to keep. Take me back to my dreams away.
Around this three-drug cocktail that's been applied. And the problem was the first was a barbiturate that was supposed to put the prisoner to sleep. The second was a paralytic agent that made them so they couldn't move. And the third induced a heart attack. And the fear, and actually there was some real evidence to show this, was that in many cases that they weren't applying enough of the barbiturates. So the patient, the prisoner wasn't asleep, but was actually just paralyzed as they induced a massive and painful heart attack. And as that evidence came out in state after state across the country, then real concern.
One of the current trends in the United States shows that American citizens are tending to drift away from favoring capital punishment. Support for the death penalty has declined from 76% in favor in 1995 to 63% in 2000. One of the reasons for this was, as just described earlier, were because of the flaws of the current system of execution. I'll describe several other reasons that account for this trend throughout this film.
And that's a good point. But as you just said, 63% of Americans are still in favor of capital punishment. So just because more were in favor of capital punishment in the past than recently isn't a valid reason for the death penalty to be abolished completely. In fact, in certain cases, like the Oklahoma City bomber, Timothy McVeigh, some 80% of Americans were in favor of capital punishment. And nothing is perfect. There are obvious flaws in every system, as with lethal injection, but there are other options out there being made available, which...
The method is called nitrogen asphyxiation. The process is very simple and cheap. Nitrogen is a gas that we breathe every day, as it makes up about 78% of the air, along with oxygen and a few traces of other gases. But oxygen is the gas that is essential to the survival of cells in the human body. Removing oxygen from a chamber and replacing it with pure nitrogen unlike using cyanide gas in the gas chamber, is imperceptible by the person breathing it. There's no panic, no struggle. This person simply exhales carbon dioxide as usual, but doesn't replace the oxygen. After a short period of euphoria, the brain simply shuts down.
Another problem with capital punishment is from the financial aspect. A common misconception is that it's cheaper to send someone to death row than to send somebody to life in prison. This is actually false. I will give you an example from California. California's Commission on the Fair Administration of Justice, for example, has estimated that the state is spending $138 million a year on the death penalty. For the 670 people on death row, the state spends $90,000 per inmate per year, in addition to $34,000 annual costs of incarcerating a prisoner serving a life sentence. Death row inmates wait on average 4 years before being assigned an attorney for their first appeal, which amounts to an added expenditure of $360,000 per inmate even before they appeal.
I spent 22 years in prison for a crime I did not commit, including 19 on death row.
Back in 1972, I was committed to prison for 10 years for a crime that I didn't commit.
I spent 17 and a half years in prison for a crime that I did not commit, and I narrowly escaped execution.
Another problem with capital punishment is a moral and legal issue because of the risk of putting innocent people to death. In a national study in 1998, some 83 prisoners who were to be executed had their cases reviewed and were found.
My name is Judy Kerr. I'm with California Crime Victims for Alternatives to the Death Penalty. My brother Bob was killed in 2003, and in 2004 and in 2005 I thought we'd find someone who had killed my brother, but his killer still walks the street. Many of our murder victim family members, like myself, have unsolved homicides and oppose the death penalty because they recognize that the resources that we're...
Yes, there is a risk of innocent people being put on death row, but it isn't significant in comparison to the benefits of capital punishment. Those that believe it is a deterrent say that the statistics supporting the idea that the death penalty does not deter crime are misrepresented. These statistics basically say that states which do not have the death penalty have higher crime rates than those that don't, that a more severe punishment only inspires more severe crimes. Strongly urbanized states are more likely to have higher crime rates than states that are more rural, such as those that lack capital punishment. The states that have capital punishment are compelled to have higher crime rates, not the other way around. In addition to deterring crime, capital punishment prevents killers from being released back on the streets, either via escaping or
Well, we thank you for joining us today.
We hope that we have supplied you with enough information on capital punishment that you'll be able to form your own opinion, whether it should be practiced